Little bit different episode of Zero Block 30. Normally kick off with rounds. We tell you different topics about what we're going to be seeing in the world, the news that's surrounding the military. Not going to do that today.
No,
today
very
a little
different.
more platoon-style room because we're all out here in Colorado Springs. We're currently sitting at the View House in Colorado Springs where we're going to have a meet and greet with the guys from Spittin' Chicklets a little bit later. We stayed at the La Quinta Inn and we said, you know what, we're going to go to the Air Force Academy. We met up with one of the great Barstool viceroys who runs the Barstool Air Force Academy account on Barstool or on Instagram, and it was great. I didn't know what to expect, but I left with a greater appreciation of what the Air Force Academy is.
I fell in love with the Air Force Academy and all those I felt like a ball of love by the time I left, and I was ready to re-enlist. I want to join the Air Force.
I knew Kate
now.
was going to feel that way because Kate doesn't hate anything except for people being mean.
I
knew that's the way that was going to go down.
First of all, I love that we're doing a platoon room the way most military platoon rooms are. Just the dudes and the gals hanging out with an enormous mimosa tower on a patio outside the Rockies looking upon.
As they do on Saturday
mornings.
It's
really cool because the NHL is playing this game at Falcon Stadium on the campus there, and we actually got to go right by it. And then, not only did we get the full tour of the campus, which is one of the biggest in the nation.
Third biggest, yeah.
I was not expecting how enormous that campus was going to be, but that the Barstool Air Force, we don't want to give his name away. I don't know. It could be a tricky thing.
He said
but he was awesome. Yeah, he was awesome. He gave us a full tour and then he took us down to where the airfield is and the wings of blue guys. As soon as we went in, they had water bottles sitting out, little desks for us so they could play the videos. They had a presentation. They took us around the parachute rooms. We got to see people wrapping up the parachutes.
So let's take a step back before we get into all that.
Yeah.
So, Cons, you had been here before. You're the only one of the group that had ever been here before. But it's a little bit different when you come from football. And I think that the Air Force Academy, Army, Navy, for people who are sports fans, whenever you think of the Academy, you don't really think of a lot of the military stuff that goes behind it. You really think of the sports teams. At least I have forever.
They're just the most forward-facing. So, yeah, although I had been here, I didn't see any of this stuff ever before. So yesterday was as much my first time here at the Air Force Academy as it was yours. Typically for a football game, you get off the bus, go to the stadium. And I did say, credit to me, it would be breathtaking. And it, I think, did not disappoint as we sit here overlooking these mountains. Nature is gorgeous out here. But it was very interesting to see the rest of the campus as well.
I had never been to any of the academies. Like, I've gone with you to West Point. Like, I've gone up there.
But again, even that, like, we drove into the parking lot.
Yeah, and went straight to the game. There was I didn't go to the dorms. I didn't do any of that stuff. Going here, it kind of reset my mindscape of where I'm at with the academies as a whole. Because like I said, growing up, you would watch Air Force, you would watch Army, Navy play football, and you kind of just assume that it's a sports thing. Going in there yesterday when we pulled in, one of the first things that was shocking to me as we pulled in through the gate is, one, there's MPs guarding the gate. They have the security forces, people checking IDs and shit like that. And I thought, this is like a legit military place where these people are going to school to serve our country. And every single person that we walk by in their uniform, in civilian attire, is doing something to support the country right now, starting at 18 and going up to 22 or whatever they're when they graduate. To me, I think it's a special kind of feel on campus. I've been on many different campuses, been to many different tours on campuses. It was different. The different feel was very evident.
It definitely almost feels, and tell me if I'm off base here, but it really does feel like a military base. You see everyone walking around in uniforms, people greeting just like you would on a military base, people saluting just like you would on a military base. So it almost doesn't feel like you're out of college.
Right, and that's where I want to kind of get into it because deep down inside, the person that I am is still that staff NCO. When we pulled up to the gate, I said that it felt like a military base. I was disgusted immediately because
you were already making corrections.
The Air Force people were wearing different uniforms. It was warmer than 45 degrees when we got here. It's much colder now, but they were wearing their night stocking caps, their beanies. Yeah. They had those out, different color beanies, different color uniforms, and I'm like, what's going on?
You
here?
almost had an aneurysm in the front seat.
Let's have just a little bit of decorum, please.
But as soon as we got in there, once our Air Force guy, we'll call him Barstool Air Force guy. Once he started showing us around.
Let's say our guide. That'll be easier.
Our guide. I think in my mind, even I'm guilty of this. I look at the service academies and I'm like, these are like the perfect, like robot, everyone is perfect, and they go there and they're like the top of the top. But it's not so cookie cutter. There was so much personality in everybody we met, and they're allowed to still express that there. In my mind, it is like
after a while. After a while.
But like it is, I don't know. I think people in their minds must picture it a certain way, like I don't know, so black and white. But there's a lot of color in this academy. There's like so many interesting people. I loved going through the dorms and seeing all the murals just everywhere. And
which flag is it?
One bite. Even the Air Force knows those rules. I love it. Yeah. Learning about the traditions that they have.
Well, let's just talk about that for a little bit. So the academy, the Air Force Academy, and it's just like this at Navy and Army as well, is they're broken out just like the same military structure as if you were in a unit out in the regular military. So each unit has a unit mascot, and they decorate their area in the theme of that mascot. So that's the murals that you're talking about.
Also, oldest ass dorm room. The chairs in that dorm room. The Air Force is using chairs from they call it the Chair Force. They're sitting in chairs from 19-dickety-2 in their barracks room. I've
Big
never
time
seen
Dickety-2, yeah.
older, still the old ass carpeting. There's like a random sink with no mirror for no reason in their room. I just like loved walking through and seeing everybody's setup.
Cons, you especially liked all the Army quotes that were plastered among the
so I
Air
could not
Force
get over.
dorms.
We come to the Air Force Academy and we're walking through the dorms.
That's not hyperbole. He definitely could not get over it. He was talking about the Army every 5 minutes.
Well, I couldn't help
You
it.
were wearing an Army
turned,
sweatshirt.
Everybody
everywhere
They
we
were chirping
turned.
you were getting a lot of chirps also.
Yeah, that was fine. I expected that. But everywhere we turned, there was a reminder of the Army. There was quotes by General Patton. General Patton never served a day in the Air Force. There was. We should also mention there was the Davy Page Hughes quote on one of the walls.
One bite,
one bite.
There was the Pink Panther wearing an 82nd Airborne uniform. I really just was taken aback a little bit that I thought that they would have a little more uniqueness to them and not so much of the Army culture.
But what are they
get outta
supposed to
here.
do? They've only been around since
Don't
like the
make excuses.
1960s. What are they supposed to do?
They have plenty of people
It
that
seems like they're
they
the
could
only
honor.
branch confident enough in
Right.
themselves that they can celebrate the
I've
other
never
branches
seen such
too.
little dick energy
Yeah,
as constantly
my God.
worried about it. The Army's always worried about what other
No.
branches think and what are they doing? Oh, look at us. They're looking at us. Who gives a fuck?
But the campus itself.
Well, let's talk, just before we leave the dorms, and chaps, I know you'll agree with me. I could not get over how dirty they were. And I'm not
Okay.
talking
they
about-
weren't dirty.
Yes, they were.
Okay.
The
Oh my God,
buildings
yes, they
were
were.
so old. They're
No. I'm
impossible
not talking
to
about
clean.
the carpet that's 50 years old. Okay, got it. You can't do anything about that. The clutter that was everywhere in the dorm rooms was disgusting.
It was surprising to me because you hear like the military discipline and things like that. You know, I actually don't have a huge problem with it now. Like if you'd asked me back in the day, I had a huge problem with how dirty those rooms were and how cluttered they are. But they are college students. They are kind of going on like a 3-day weekend, so let them have it. But when you have an idea of what a military college, a military academy, you would think that everything is lined up. You have everything covered in a line. Everything has its place and every place has its home. All that shit. That wasn't the case. They give them a little bit more freedom. I don't think it's that way just based on other videos we've seen from West Point and from the Naval Academy that it's that same way.
But you still get to personalize. It's not like you're all robots, though. What I liked about it was that you can see, like, oh, yeah, these are college students, too.
Yeah.
These people are going on to serve our
for sure.
country,
Yeah.
but they're also college students,
Yeah.
and this is their college experience. So get off their dicks, you guys.
But I
Jeez.
did love the fact
God.
there is some aspects of the military discipline that was beautiful to my staff and soul.
Yep.
One of those was very evident whenever you're walking through. So their very first years, they call them what?
Doolies.
Doolies. So
Long-time doolies, plane by
Long-time
plane.
doolies.
Plane by plane.
Wing by wing.
So all of their freshmen are called doolies. And the doolies at the Air Force Academy, from what we understand, have by far the strictest of all the rules that are there. So everybody, it kind of gets looser as you go up, just like it does in rank and things like that. But whenever you get there, you're a dually. If you're going somewhere, hello, you're running. Hello, you're fucking running. And I love that shit.
You're moving out?
Whenever they told me, like, oh, yeah, the dualies the first year until they graduate and they finish their last exam, if they're outside and they're walking on the marble, they're running. It might not be a full-blown sprint, but you better shuffle your way across. Yeah. And I love that stuff. They would come by us because it was me, Kate, Cons, Bren, and the two guides that were bringing us. So it was one woman, and you had other men that were going there. So they would say, good afternoon, ma'am. Good afternoon, gentlemen.
Fear the Reaper.
Fear the Reaper. And then they would continue on with their shit.
Whatever their unit's thing
greeting of
was,
the
they had a
day, and it's
slogan.
only the dualies that had to do it. And I love that because deep down in your heart, I know from being a former PFC, a former Lance Corporal, when you have to give everybody the gritting of the day, you do it behind gritted teeth, and you fucking hate doing it. And you see a bigger group, and you're like, God damn it, there's mixed genders here.
What
now
am I
gotta
say?
Fucking good afternoon, ma'am. Good afternoon, gentlemen. By your leave, good morning, sir. You have to say all this.
But again, that's
shit.
just like the regular
Yeah,
military.
it is.
Once
And
you're in the
I like
fleet,
it. Yeah.
I also love that they have these huge parade grounds. I mean, it's so impressive when you see it. It's these massive, massive parade grounds with the mountains in the background, and they're all this beautiful slate. And then the slate is crisscrossed by like maybe every 20 feet apart these marble stones that lead pathways, and the dualies also are supposed to stay on the marble
the boots
stones.
have to stay on the
it's
marble.
like, they say don't step on the crack. They can't leave the crack. They have to stay on the marble as they walk across campus. There was a couple other things I just really, really loved.
I'd like to point out, though, you guys say whatever you want. When you walked up, and again, the school was built in the 50s. There's 1950s architecture. It kind of looked like a community college.
It is from the visitors' parking lot. It's not impressive. I think that changes once you get down into the quad.
I think the starkness of it and the simplicity of it all goes to show you like
it grew on
the
me.
beauty
your first
of the
impression
background.
is not like, But your second
Yeah, I thought it
impression,
was
once
cool.
you actually go down there, you're like, this is pretty substantial. So then after we kind of got the cursory view of what the campus looked like, then we stepped over and got kind of the meat and potatoes of where we were, what our experiences was that day, which is when we went and met with the Wings of Blue, who is the Air Force parachute team. And that really set apart how different it is from most collegiate experiences. You guys agree?
That part blew me away. It's like I was explaining to people last night. I was like, it's like synchronized swimming, but in the air after you jump out of a plane. And it's just, I never knew that was a thing that existed. And they were like, yeah. So like say 4 guys jump out of a plane. They almost do like a dance routine in the air, a synchronized routine. And they're judged on it.
And it's not almost like it is.
It
They're
is.
falling at, they said 130 miles an hour. They're falling out of the airplane. They're grabbing hold of each other and doing legit complicated moves.
Synchronized
to the point
moves.
where their team has won 23 national championships.
Yeah, they're like
doing
the
it.
number 1 team, and they have more championships coming up. But then not only is it the 4 guys who jump and do this routine, then a student who's a cameraman has to jump out behind them
and remain like
and
perfectly still in the
they're
shot.
graded. The way they're judged so they win the competitions is on the video that student takes while they're flying through the air at hundreds of miles an hour.
Yeah, so you could basically be doing the Vince Carter rim, your arm through the rim dunk, and nobody gets it, so it doesn't matter.
Right.
It
So
doesn't
if the
matter.
video
It's like
guy
it's
misses it,
Everything
you're
goes on cinematography.
Yeah.
It's like the opposite of the Oscars, where cinematography that like 1917 won. It's kind of an afterthought, but now the cinematography is like the most important part, because if you don't get that, you don't have anything.
But I thought it was so cool because you could tell they were so excited about it and they love it so much that
They were adorable.
their excitement about it, was contagious. As soon as we walked in, we get to the airfield, we go into the building where they do all their like flight stuff, their parachuting. I don't know the terms for it.
It was like
but
a 7-part trip.
so
they had so many things to show us.
We get in there and they have water bottles on these little desks and a presentation ready for us where they show us what they do. These 3 guys were awesome.
We originally thought it was just going to be like a throw-in thing. Like, you kind of looked at the campus. Let's just go down here. We had to get buzzed into a more secure area to the flight line. And when we got there, they set us down in this classroom. And they were like, we have a couple videos. And at first, my initial response was, I don't want to watch a fucking video.
And then it was great.
I don't want to watch you guys jump out of
It
planes.
was great. It showed us what they
Yeah.
were all about. And from there, they took us into the next room where they show us. And this is stuff that, as a Marine, I never saw up close. It was
Right.
them packing their parachutes. And then there was the room where when you're in gym class as a little kid in
Those
elementary
scooters.
school, those little squares that had the wheels on them, I'm like, what are
But
these?
they were the fanciest ones
They
ever.
were
the
fancy
fanciest
long
scooter
ones.
racers that you'll
so
ever see.
they lay on these on their stomachs, and that's how they practice their moves that they do in the air. So it was awesome for us to get down and do a little goofing on those. And
I think that the coolest part of that entire experience of going down there was, one, the fact that they showed us the videos where they're jumping into NFL games, they're jumping into All-Star games, they're jumping at air shows, anywhere like the Air Force Fly team
I had
are.
no idea those were
They're
students.
doing all that.
Yeah.
Well, let me
And
interrupt
they're
you real quick. I
students.
just want to say, I didn't know that they are the demonstration team for the entire Air Force, whereas the other academies have teams that are specific to the school, and then they have enlisted teams. They represent the entire Air Force, and I didn't
These
know
are
that
all
before.
juniors in
Right.
college. Like
It's
the whole
crazy.
team was junior in college. They haven't even got their designation yet. But they were telling us that some of them have done 2,500 jumps, 3,000 jumps in college. To me, if you're trying to get people to go to the Air Force Academy, go to an extreme place like San Diego where X Games is super popular. Be like, hey, you can come here. Just show them that board, because when we walk into their ops section, these guys are juniors in college. They're not even in the military yet. They just go in there, and if planes are flying, they just put their little name on a board and they fly and they could jump. They said that they've done any day of the week, as long as the weather is fine, as long as they said 18 knots, as long as it's not blowing harder than 18 knots. They could just go. They could take a little bus down there and be like, I'm jumping out of a plane again today.
You asked a great question, though, too. You said, like, well, how does this prepare you and how does this separate you from the rest of the cadets? And talking about going on the flight line, talking about going to the scheduling room, it really gives them that operational experience to put them ahead of the game so that when they get out there to their whatever unit they go to in the Air Force, they're a step ahead.
And I love lessons in leadership, and that's what these people do. I love the fact that at some of the academies, all the academies that I'm learning about, that you have students that are leading the juniors that are coming in. So you have juniors and seniors that are leading the freshmen and sophomores and guiding them along the way. These people on this team, they are so good at jumping and free falling and doing all that shit that they are the legit instructors. In the other branches of service, even in the Army active duty, you don't become an instructor at jump school till you're like an E7.
Right.
These people are juniors in college.
And what was crazy was almost all of them had said they had never jumped before they got here to the Air Force Academy.
And now they're like legit experts.
3 years later, now they're experts, and now they're teaching others. It's really impressive.
Yeah, they taught us, too. They took us into the hangar where it was almost like you're attached to a parachute. They hit this button, and we're all on the strings and the harnesses. They pull us up like about 4 or 5 feet off the ground.
You get pulled up like legitimately. If you've seen a butcher house, you get pulled up like a hog that's about to get slaughtered.
It's very Texas Chainsaw Massacre, for sure.
You can get some weird sex stuff in there, too.
And then, so this is how they teach the students. They put you up in this harness. You're right. Very true.
That harness is snug.
I mean, I'm pretty sure one of the Air Force guys did some sex stuff to Kant.
Yeah, jumped up. But what they do is, for these students, they all come in the summer. Students have the option. Any student, whether they're going to continue jumping in their careers or not, any student can sign up in the summer to come in and take this week-long class where they learn to jump.
And it's only 5 days.
Students.
So they start on Monday. By day 5, they're jumping by themselves. And one of the most important aspects, or the most interesting, everywhere else you start with a tandem jump or you start with a slack line, like where immediately you jump out of the airplane, your parachute pulls automatically. These people, some of the students here, their very first jump out of the airplane, it's on their own.
That's wild.
By themselves. And they teach them, they go through all the different they've never had a serious mishap in doing this.
But it was cool. It was like in the Marines, we have the rollover training and the helo training where they dump you in the pool or they flip the thing over and you try to get out.
There's a lot of ditties.
And so they do the same thing with this, where they pulled us up in the harnesses several feet off the ground, and then they shake you, they spin you.
Stress
They're
test,
screaming
big time.
at you, so you know what to do. If shit goes wrong, you know all the backups. And I think that's such a cool way to train, and it's just a branch that I didn't have much experience with, so it was super cool to see. And also just from the pilots to the access, the freedom, and the trust that the academy gives these students to take their own initiative to do these things in their free time was awesome.
Yeah, because they said to be on that team, you have to give up your Saturdays. Like, you don't have Saturdays, but you get to travel around. They bring an instructor with you to take your tests and things like that. One of the more interesting aspects of this school, because you hear Air Force, you automatically think pilots and planes and things like that. And I'm sure a great number of the people who actually go to the school want to be pilots. But one of the guides that we had was saying no, like he doesn't want to be a pilot. He wanted to get involved in cyber warfare because that's the future of warfare, or he wants to be one of the first officers in the Space Force.
Space Force,
and he was like, yeah, I'm super into the Space Force. I would love to do that. You stay here in Colorado Springs. You stay close by. You get to be involved in the next step. And I thought about that because I've goofed on the Space Force, primarily just goofing. But being a part of the establishment of a new branch of service is
very
awesome.
Cool.
I know.
That'd
we
be
were
awesome.
like, we have to have him on the pod when he's the first Space Force officer.
Recently, the very first E9 of the Space Force just got brought over from the Air Force, and same thing with their new commandant or whatever they're going to call him. And I thought, you know what, for essentially the rest of time until the Space Force is shut down or until America is shut down, this dude's name is going to be known at boot camp. Who's the first sergeant major of the Space Force? Who's the first commandant of the Space Force? It's you. Who's going to be the first? You could end up, if you leave here in the next year and a half, you could be one of the first major people in a branch of service.
It's an
and that's
exciting
fucking
time to be
awesome.
there.
Going into the history books is certainly a wild concept to think about, especially if you're undergrad in college. And then if you look 5 years down the road, what you might be working on in the branch of service, it's certainly a special opportunity.
Yeah, it was very cool, and also very cool just to be on a campus that has its own airfield is unique. Not
very
a lot
cool
of
to be
colleges have that.
on a campus where they said that you could see anything from raccoons, the bears, the moose, the
yeah, the
elk,
one guy was like, yeah, I
whatever.
saw a bear on campus once, no big deal. But the campus was so beautiful. Again, we caught it on a beautiful day. But the people, everybody was so nice. It was funny to hear the greetings of the day. It just kind of took me back. I get so delighted by that shit now that I'm like, oh, what a treat when they say, like, fear the Reaper when they walk by you.
They've got planes all around campus. Like, at the quad,
Yeah.
I feel like they have one at, like, each corner,
There's
and the
planes in the
spires are
quads.
really, really big.
And
like, we
to
had
that
pictures of
point
them.
about how many planes they have, they said that that's the most busy airfield in the Air Force.
Yeah.
Is that they constantly have gliders up. They have different flight missions going up because people are learning the very early stages of flight. They have all their parachuters
Right.
that are constantly going. They said in a week, 1 week they had over the summer, whenever they bring in their boot camp classes and they have the training that happens over the summertime, that they did 2,500 jumps
It's
in
insane.
a week.
The lady who was there, she's a civilian who helps wrap the parachutes, and she was like, yeah, it was fucking insane.
Yeah.
She didn't say the F word, but
Yeah,
you
she
could
was like,
tell
it's
that was the
crazy.
vibe.
And we were like,
Yeah.
how many jumps do you have? And she was like, oh, me, I have like 10,000 jumps.
Yeah.
But there was another guy that had 250,000 jumps.
Yeah,
Some
she was
absolute
saying
insane
that she did
amount.
like 2,500 jumps or
25,000
something, but
jumps
that
was
but compared to the rest of her
Right,
family,
yeah,
who
yeah,
I guess
she
was
was-
very involved,
Right.
that she doesn't even come close to the amount of jumps that the rest of her family had.
Another thing that I loved that was really unique, and I'd never heard of this either because I'd never heard of the jump team thing, but I asked them, I'm like, so I didn't see any TVs in your dorms. Where do you guys watch like football and stuff on Sundays? And they're like, oh, most of us go to our like
Oh, yeah.
our host families.
Yeah, the host family.
And I was like, what do you mean host family? Every single student there gets paired to an individual family in the community who becomes their host
Could
family.
be military, could be not.
Could be military, could be not. It could be just a regular, and a lot of these are civilian families that volunteer to like adopt a student throughout their time, through their whole 4 years or 5 years or whatever. And so they were like, yeah, the one guy was like, mine's an Army lieutenant colonel. And the other guy was like, yeah, mine's a civilian family. But on Sundays, the families invite them, come have dinner, come watch the football games, come do whatever.
And you probably need that to return to being like a human.
I think that's so awesome. I
Did
have
you guys
never
have that?
heard that.
Of course we did.
Yeah.
You did?
Yes.
I love that.
Yeah,
I
yeah,
didn't
yeah.
know the academies did that, and
Yeah,
I think
yeah.
that's such a cool way too.
Can I
But-
just say real quick, like overall
Fucking
experience?
coddling officers, honestly.
Yeah. Yeah.
Overall experience, watching Kate gush over everything about the Air Force Academy. It's like that meme.
I loved it.
It's like the
dude.
meme of the guy walking with his girlfriend and he's looking back at the other girl.
Yeah.
Like the other
Yeah.
girl is the Air Force Academy. I cannot wait to bring you to West
Well,
Point and just blow this place out of the water.
I think that that's one of the special things and why Kate fits into the podcast so well is because I have this natural instinct to shit on things. Like if it doesn't have a lot of discipline, so does Cons. Cons is going to shit on anything that's not Army at all. And then Kate comes in as like the total love bear.
But
of
here's
everything.
my thing with it. You're like, oh, it was lacking discipline. It was messy. It was dirty. The Air Force they did
Their
have the
mission's not
structure.
the same.
But one, their mission's not the same, and two, these people are often incredibly intelligent. It's a whole different vibe, and I love that the Air Force actually trusts them to do their fucking thing without being down their throats and micromanaging them so much.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's a little messier, but they're also
I didn't even think it was
trusted
messy.
more.
You guys are crazy.
Oh
we
my
went
God.
into their
Thank
dorms,
you.
and I was like,
Thank
what?
you, Bren.
There was
Thank
nothing
you,
on the
Bren.
floor, no
You have
laundry
no
on the
discipline
floor.
in your
I
life.
No, oh my
I
God.
lack discipline.
No,
That's
I
because you
totally
have
wrong.
discipline in your dastardly body. But now when I look back, if you had to ask me now, I mean, I wouldn't trade my time as a Marine for anything. Like, I love being a Marine. It's one of my two favorite titles our three favorite titles I have in my life are dad, husband, and Marine. Those are it for me. If I would have known some of the things that you could have done, this might be a place that I would be interested in going to.
Truly,
I don't
yeah.
think you could have talked me in whenever I was preacher chaps to go to West Point or something like that. That
Yeah.
was so much more tighter as far as like the discipline aspect of it. But this would have been very, very appealing.
Yeah, it was awesome. And I'm going to say it, and I said it when we were leaving yesterday. After meeting our guide and some of the other people around the campus and walking through the dorms and seeing, I'm going to say it's not the dark sense of humor of the Marines, and it's not the trying to have a sense of humor but not of the Army, but it's the funniest. It's the funniest.
Oh, I disagree
they had the
with
best
that.
sense of humor.
I disagree.
They're the
with that.
goofiest.
I
think that the
absolutely
Marines and
loved
the
it.
Army are definitely the
Yes.
funniest of branches.
No,
of
but in a
Absolutely.
different way. This was a different kind of funny that I just absolutely loved. And also, I I don't know. All the
They were very
little,
Hufflepuff, I think is what you're trying to say.
There was just different traditions.
Yes. You have West Point would definitely be Gryffindor. This is Hufflepuff.
Well, I loved it. They were talking
You're
about
Hufflepuff.
We walked through the chow
I have no
hall.
idea what any of these are.
The chow hall. 4,000 people sit at one time and are all eat lunch at the same time. And they're like, yeah, they had to take the Nutella and the ketchups away. I'm like, in my head, I'm like, why they were stealing it? Or the Nutella and the peanut butter away. I was like, why? Are they stealing it or something? No, they would pop them open and explode all the peanut butter and Nutella on their heads. They also, he's like, oh, at our big Christmas dinner, there's always hot sauce chugging competitions, stuff like that. I love that they call them dualies. I love the 5 uniforms try and wear 5 uniforms in one day and see if anyone notices.
The overall aspect of what I want to see here is that every time you talk to somebody that's from the academy, I think when you first talk to them, even Cons has this and had it probably much more whenever he first graduated from there, that they are kind of like, oh, yeah, it sucks. When you kind of pull it out of them, you can kind of see with our guides how much they love it.
Yep.
And they become really attached to them. It becomes really ingrained. And you see that everybody listens and fucking sees Cons every week talk about West Point.
Right.
That's the way it goes. Like, it's ingrained in who you are. And I think that it does take your military experience and it adds another element. Because people either talk about stories from college and you talk about stories from the military. When you make those two have sex and have a baby with it, it's going to be something that consumes your life for a long time.
So what that is when you're going to school every day, everyone already knows all of the information. They know the traditions. They know all the stories. They know about the buildings. They know all the names. So you just don't care, and it's just kind of miserable because you're at a military school, you're wearing a uniform, you're going.
But then somebody like Kate shows up and is blown
somebody
away.
new, and then
I loved it.
But then somebody new comes, and this, as we saw yesterday with our guides, even when you're still in school and you get to talk about it to people who have no idea about any of it,
actually care a little bit, that want to hear,
and you really just kind of just brighten up, and that's why I really just light up anytime I get to talk about it to people who don't know about it.
Also, that spiky church thing, that's like the main thing you see about the campus, the spires.
Or Spears, as Common
says. I was in the picture, I'm like, oh, how big could it be? That thing blows you away when you see it up close. You're like, that thing it's under construction for the next however many years. But I just looked at my picture roll this morning. I took a million fucking pictures of that thing.
You turn into like essentially Disney World mom.
Every 2 minutes, I was like, Chaps, can you take a picture of me booping my nose on the front of this plane?
And at first, whenever we first started working together, I'm like, this is so fucking annoying. But now I'm just like, this is who Kate is. I just got to deal with it. Like, how many takes do we need to do this boop on this plane?
You guys, she did at least 7 boops.
Yep, it was a lot.
A lot of boops.
Also, one other thing that maybe I'm biased, but
You're
towards
clearly
the end of
biased.
the tour, they were like walking us into the building where they have all their classes, and they're like, we have a surprise. And I thought it was some wacky Valentine's thing or some goofy thing they do. And they take us to the back, and there's a picture of me in Afghanistan. And I'm like, as the students walk through the halls, there I am up there. And I thought that was
Katie's
really
dog
nice.
photos.
Cool. Yeah.
I kind of got like the goosebumps when I saw it.
I did too.
I
almost,
cool.
and I talk about that I'm the Steph Curry of crying. I almost got a little bit choked up.
So did
like,
I.
See, not because your picture was on the wall, but the pride that I saw there. Because I think of all the people on the podcast, sometimes you are self-deprecating more than others, and seeing part of that, like, legacy, a part of what you accomplished and what you did. I think that having that on the wall was a cool moment for us to see too.
Yeah, I loved it. So if you're at the Air Force Academy and you're walking by, give me a boop on the nose. Boop my nose in that picture.
So let's close up shop here. We'll do a little bit of overall grade. Let's use the Glenny Ball scale of where we're at as far as the Air Force Academy. Cons, please try to use some integrity in your body and get out of the fact that you went to West Point. If you were coming here just as a normal person, what?
Can we do the cheese slice scale? Because I was told that a tradition at these games, and we're going to the NHL Stadium Series in I keep saying Falcom.
Yes.
Yeah.
Like
Notice that.
Falcon Stadium.
We'd never explain
on
it.
the campus.
No, never correct.
And they told us one of their traditions which is apparently it's a no-no now, but all the students, they corral them before the games, and they give them these like boxed lunches or whatever. And
Bach Nasties. I was glad that's a service, not a service-specific name.
Yeah, Box Nasties, and they
white
get
boxes
these
are terrible.
on the sandwiches. Always like is a Firefest style shitty sandwich with an awful piece of like Crasdale.
Not bad.
I never
sliced
got
cheese.
It's
too
like
bent out
a
of
submarine
shape.
sandwich with some like bologna or
Yeah,
some
when
cheap ham and some cheese.
Well,
Take
so
it for what it is.
I guess the students started pocketing the cheese slices, and when they got into the stadium at the football games, at one point in the game, they'd all start frisbeeing these these cheese slices when they scored. And then it became a huge no-no because the cheese was getting mushed into the field.
Well, not only that, but they would get fined. The NCAA will fine you if you throw objects.
Disrupting the game.
So I imagine like the comment on the Air Force Academy is not too keen on paying for cheese fines.
For cheese fines, fair enough. But I think we should do a cheese slice scale.
All right, so what's good?
Honor.
I mean, that's a weird scale. Like, what?
I would say
instead of balls, we'll place it with cheese.
How many craft singles are in a package? Like 20?
Five
like
cheese slices
on a scale
of
20.
I'd say there's 20 slices of Crasdale in a discount packet.
Okay, so no, there's 24.
24. Okay.
So on a scale of 1 to 24, which makes a lot of sense. We'll do a scale 1 to 24.
Aren't you glad I interrupted you?
Yeah, we'll start with you, Bren. Give them your first the craft single cheese score of the week.
I'm gonna go 17 cheese slices.
17.
So maybe a little bit low.
What can they improve on to get more cheese slices?
I was I kind of agreed with the community college aspect of it, where I was not impressed by the architecture. Just the spires were pretty cool.
That's fair.
The architectures.
I think that's fair.
But I mean, I love the people there. Everybody was super nice to us, and they get a ton of points for the scenery. Where it's put is
location.
Indeed, these mountains are amazing to look at. So I would say that's
$1
an above average score.
$100,000.
Amen, brother.
Cons?
All right. Let me start by saying
I already hate
thank
this.
you.
Actually, no. We'll go with Kate first.
All right, go ahead.
Cons is gonna have some.
No, I'm gonna have to counterbalance cons.
Okay.
Go ahead.
Okay.
All right.
Let me start by saying thank you so much to the two gentlemen who took us around and the three gentlemen at the Wings of Blue who took a big chunk out of their day. All of them took a big chunk out of their Friday afternoon on a long weekend to really give us a first-class tour.
VIP tour, I'd say.
VIP, yes. Because certainly there are cadet areas that you're not allowed to go as a civilian. So if we just showed up here without anyone guiding us, we wouldn't have been able to see any of the things we saw yesterday.
Definitely
so big points for hospitality.
So huge points for hospitality. I will say, I'm sorry, I walked away very unimpressed, and I texted my dad. He's like, well, you're coming from a place that's like a fine wine, like a fine Dom Perignon.
Oh, my God.
And Air Force is kind of like $2 Chuck from Trader Joe's.
Which
I thought that was an accurate.
I thought we were going to have some honesty on the pod.
Let me say.
They
both serve their purpose. $2 Chuck can be great. At 24 slices, I'll give it 2, and those 2 because of the 2 gentlemen from West Point who founded the school.
That's out.
Two cheese slices.
This is just another integrity violation.
That's not an integrity violation. That's not an integrity violation.
There's no way that gets a 2 out of 20.
I wasn't impressed.
Just no way.
You have to
understand.
understand.
I wish that we could have just suspended West Point.
You have to understand.
And
He's
my frame of
around there
reference
yesterday in an army hoodie, like a giant douche McGonagall.
I mean,
I am beside
the amount of chirps you got you should have some respect for that.
I
Give them a
respected
couple
it. Yeah,
extra
no,
slices.
and obviously
2 out of
24.
2
out of 24.
Just for
that
the
might
chips
even
alone.
be washed from the pod. I mean, that is just egregious.
My God.
I'm sorry.
Kate,
I'm just,
Kate, how many slices?
It's a community college.
Oh.
So what are you going to do?
That's okay. I don't mind your 2 slices because I am giving Air Force Academy 50 slices of premium craft
I mean, we just
single
have no integrity
American,
on this.
American cheese.
You established the 24
50
slice
out of
cheese
24.
scale.
Well, I'm sorry that they exceeded the 24 slices, my friend.
Now I don't even feel like the cheese
I'm
slices
at the top.
is good.
I'm at the
2 to
top of
50?
Falcon Stadium.
2 to 50.
I'm at the top of Falcon Stadium with a money gun, but full of cheese, and I'm just shooting cheese.
All right, I'll give
over
a revised
everybody.
score.
That's
Okay.
how I feel about it.
I'll give a revised score.
Okay.
4 cheese slices.
Oh, God.
Two for the 2
Oh.
founders, Eisenhower and the other gentleman from the class of 1915 at West Point who founded the school. 1 cheese slice for the Cadet Chapel because it is a very impressive-looking chapel. And 4 for the mountains in the background because those look nice. 4 cheese slices for the Air Force
50
Academy.
for me. I loved, again, you're right about the hospitality. Everybody was so nice. At the end, a couple students
I'm
came out.
disgusted with both of you guys, honestly.
A couple students came
never
out of the
looked better.
dorms and said hello. People were shouting out at us.
Yeah,
as we
people
walked
were
around.
whispering. You guys, I was a little bit
People were
behind
so
you guys.
nice.
They're
And,
like, oh my God.
I will say, I do like the fact that our show, the military podcast, has a presence at the service academies. And
Yeah,
that really
that's
does
cool.
make me feel good.
I feel honored to have that, honestly.
I loved that my photo was on the wall.
Mm-hmm.
That's at least worth 10 slices. I mean, holy calzones. It looks like I'm big cheese around there. Am I right? Also, I loved that the dualies walking on the marble pathways, the greetings. I loved how the dorms, you could see all the individuality. I loved just walking through them and seeing how goofy they were. I loved it. The Wings of Blue I learned about a new sports thing that I had never heard of before. And it was awesome getting to like roll around on the rollies and dangle from the danglers. And the whole thing was just awesome. I love that the Air Force Academy gives the students the freedom to be leaders. And that as we were leaving, I was like, I'm so blown away that these are like the next leaders in our country. It's really cool to see at this level, like where they hatch, where these little eggs.
I think it's very clear to say while Kate does a complete recap of the pod for her score.
I can't help it.
I think it's very
loved
to
it.
say that Kate was wagging her tail all over the Air Force Academy yesterday. For as far as my score, I'll give it a 19 cheese out of 24.
Fair.
I think that's I could have done more with architecture. I agree with Bren. I wish that they had the same rules for the dualies as the sophomores. I think that you should have 2 years of being just a vicious boot going through. Disappointed in the level of cereal that they had whenever in the chow hall.
Can we start a petition to get them better cereal?
The cereal,
that's a government contract.
All they had was cornflakes, Life,
Heinous.
and like Special K.
Not
they had
okay.
nothing to brighten up your day. It was like your grandma's cereal selection.
Right.
Being down in the basement, their fire watch. I didn't appreciate that. I thought that you can't see. You don't have good view over everything. You can get away with a lot of stuff. I need to up the discipline there. So overall, I'll give it 1924. The setting is beautiful and things like that. But on a surprise addition, because Kate and Cons, just an egregious lack of respect for the cheese scale that was just newly established. I'm going to give them both Firewatch.
Let's go.
They're going to have for tonight. They're going to have Firewatch. Kate will be doing hours 2 and 6. Cons will be doing hours 3 and 7 of Firewatch. And then, Bren, you actually are going to be released from Firewatch for the next 2 weeks because you didn't have an integrity violation. You respected the scale.
My only regret, I can tell you already, my only regret about my score, although it was honest, is that when eventually we make it to West Point, Kate is going to be blown away, but she's not going to admit it. Just to spite me.
I will never love West Point. That's my promise
I don't
to
think
listeners.
that's the case. Kate loves fucking everything.
Yeah, that's true.
Can we
We can walk into a DeVry physical campus and Kate would be like, "This is wonderful."
I don't love everything. This was a very special thing.
Everything, but with a bad attitude.
Academy was the highlight of my trip. Also, can I say one more thing in closing that has nothing to do with the Academy?
Sure.
I bought my first legal marijuana last night.
Yeah, I was going to say, can we talk a little bit about last night about where Kate took us to eat dinner?
It was Valentine's Day. And there's 7 of us, because Spit and Chicklets and some producers are here, too. It's Valentine's Day night, and 7 of us, 6 dudes and me, are, like, going into all these restaurants in Colorado Springs.
Like, hey,
you guys got a table for 7 at, like, prime dinner hours. So there's nowhere to go. Cons takes us to this burger place that's like nowhere to sit, and I was like, "What is this clown doing?" He clearly, what are you doing?
Why would you take
so
something
I
like
run
that?
down the block. I take the initiative. I do a little scouting. I find us a spot that has beers and burgers and all that good shit. But the only space available.
Walking up, we're like, like we're blindly trusting Kate to pick out where we're eating for dinner again. This is probably not going to end well.
Well, I find the only table for us is available in the basement, and it's where a comedy show is about to start, but like a hyper local, real bad comedy show.
So many Colorado Springs specific jokes that went over our heads.
Bad there.
It was pretty bad. They come and sit down, and I was like, and they all start talking. I'm like, quick note, we can't talk in about 10 minutes. We're not going to be able to talk anymore through this dinner because a wacky comedy show is starting.
You so bad at picking locations of where we go.
So
I didn't go.
There.
I stayed in the Quinta.
We went down to the basement, and it was like, you know what? Actually, Kate, you did like a pretty good job. Like, there's a bar here. Like, it looked really nice upstairs.
And
then,
like, no, not
and
here.
Then
over here.
And then all of a sudden, some weirdo takes a mic. He's like, "How y'all doing?" I'm like, "Kate, what are you doing?"
I was so sorry. It was pretty rough. Like, there was like 2 good comedians, and the rest, it was all just silently sitting there eating on Valentine's night. But then after that, everybody goes back to the hotel. I go out on a venture on my own. And I was like, I'm in Colorado. I want to buy marijuana. I've never bought it legally before, and I wanted to just to do it. So I find this place in Manitou Springs, like 15 minutes from here. You go in, you give your ID, then you go through, and all the products are on the wall, and a bud tender comes over to you with a little clipboard, and he's like, "What do you want?" And I am such a nerd. I was whispering to him like it was still legal. I was like, "I'm looking for a little something to take back at my hotel.
I would like to do one weed.
One weed,
one
please.
marijuana,
Only
please. One marijuana, please, Governor." So I said, though, I was like, I'm flying out on Sunday. I don't want to fly with it because I'm a dork. Can you I just need 2 nights in a hotel.
You don't want to go to jail. I don't think that's not dorky.
Which I should make note. Like,
do not bring
some
weed
people
onto
that on this trip were like, "Hey, so is it cool if like we bring stuff to the game tomorrow?" I was like, "It is a military base. There's a very good chance the car gets searched before before we go on. So I would advise against bringing illegal drugs.
Well, I got a wonderful brownie truffle. I got 3 of them, and I take them back to the room.
Well, I didn't know you got 3. I thought you only got 1.
I ate a whole one, and then I realized I talked to a friend who's heavy, and they were like, maybe you shouldn't have done that. That's a lot more than usual. So I had about 15 milligrams at once, which normally a 5 will do me on a gummy. Anyway, I take a shower. I settle in. I had bought a bunch of half-price Valentine's candy. I settle in on the bed in my PJs in Colorado with the mountains in the background, and I get high as a motherfucker. It was a delight. It was the perfect ending to a day. So maybe I can't go back into the Air Force Academy as much as I wanted, but I'm sure glad I got to experience it. What a treat.
Yeah. There you go. I think that pretty much sums up our trip here in Colorado. We'll be back with a normal episode, back to the rounds, back to the stuff that you guys love. Hope you enjoyed our review of the Air Force Academy, despite Kate and Khan's egregious lack of integrity at the end. We appreciate you guys listening. It's on the retreat.